I'm doing great this morning. Thank you.
Yeah? What you drinking? I have some iced tea. I couldn't do any more coffee.
Oh, no, I have coffee. So
Yeah. Do you drink it black?
I do. I don't drink a lot of it just because over the years, it just I end up drinking too much of it. So it just eats away at my stomach.
I hear
But
you. Gotta be
cup
careful.
cup in the afternoon, I'm good.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so let's talk about this. You're running for county commission. So why run? What do you want to do if you're elected?
So 16 years ago, almost to the day, I came here 2 weeks before Hurricane Charlie. Hurricane Charlie hit Sanibel at a Category 4. I raised my hand. I've been involved in the community since then. So I have a real pride of community and being involved in the community. I really enjoyed doing it. I've been on city council for 14 years. I've also been mayor for the last 11. And really issues that I look at, I came in 2007. Sanibel was almost bankrupt. A city that obviously spent too much money, had about a $60 million budget, $100 million in reserves, in debt, I'm sorry, no money in reserves, and a pension system that was funded only at 47%. And most people say, what's that like? It was worse than Detroit's pension system. So I looked at that, and then some years later, that's when I met your husband, I had algae that was up to my waist, 3 feet of red drift algae. So I look at the reasons that we're involved right now. Being involved in the community, being a public servant is something I really enjoy doing. Sanibel, I was able to use my business skills and my skills in accounting to turn around the city of Sanibel. We went from having the highest millage rate to the lowest in our history since 2004. That debt is now down at $18 million. The reserves are now up to 12, and that pension system is funded at 93%. So I look at that, and I go forward with water quality. And water quality has been something I've advocated for. I had the privilege of testifying in a fly-in that at the time Congressman Radel did. And actually since then, I brought over $3 billion into projects here for our community, advocating in Washington, advocating in Tallahassee. You know, I feel like the skill set that I have with a $2.1 billion budget, someone that's been around finance and accounting his entire life. I use the resources for the taxpayer as we're going through probably the worst recession we're ever going to see. We thought 2008 was, and I went into office during that recession. So the skill set I learned during it, and the things I've done during it, really are going to the things that I'll bring to the county and continue to advocate for that. I'll make sure the taxpayers, utilize the money to the best of their capability. You can't raise taxes right now. In addition to that, we need to continue to work on water quality. The environment is our economy. The economy is our environment. So I look at those reasons, and I have a 25 and a 35-year-old, like you, children, and I watch them grow up. And this is really about them and for tomorrow. It's about what they really like to do here in Lee County. I've been very fortunate to run a business here. I employ over 300 people. So there's a lot of aspects of this that I look like there's a need for me to continue to do that. And I'm very fortunate having come from the most humble beginnings, really being on food stamps and anything that you could to show that you can do things if you work hard. And I've just been a big believer, maybe a workaholic, but I work really, really hard. And this community has been great to me. There's nothing like seeing a community come together like we did during Hurricane Charlie. And that really has motivated me and continues to motivate me. And that's why I'm running for office.
That's awesome. So you touched on water a little bit. Is there anything, obviously water is huge here, and I grew up here, and seeing the blue-green algae and the water the way it was, in recent history, it's heartbreaking. So is there anything in particular you would try to do differently if you were elected?
Well, what I'd like to do is on Sanibel, we've actually looked at the water quality and water quantity. So water quality is about what you can do locally, okay? Put together one of the most comprehensive fertilizer ordinances. Spread that through the cities. I'm the president of the Florida League of Mayors. Water quality is my #1 initiative. I look at that. I look at stormwater runoff. I look at the opportunities for septic conversions to sewer. Sanibel only had 16 left. We're 100% sewered after this project is done. We only had 16 septics. And we applied to the DEP for a grant and received it. And Nora Valentine, who's the head of the DEP, said to me, Mayor, more people need to apply. You were the only one that put in from Lee County, your city, for funding. So I look at that opportunity where we need to obviously address a lot of the septic tanks that are leaching and breaching And we have an opportunity to do that, especially when there's funding under this governor who's put together that. Lastly, we also worked on reclaimed water. So reclaimed water is, we basically remove the nitrogen and phosphate and we use it, because water is such a precious commodity. We use it for condos, we use it for golf courses. So again, we're not polluting it. Lastly, we have 120 lakes on Sanibel where we actually monitor the pollutants in the water. So I look at the water quality issues. I like to bring that forward at the county level, okay? Bring the county coalition of 67 counties, like I did with 412 mayors together, under water quality. Let's do the things we can locally, because then when you go to Tallahassee, you go to Washington, and you walk the walk and talk the talk and say, here's what we're doing locally. When I go to Washington, it's very compelling when they say, Sanibel invested over $120 million in water quality issues. This is why you should fund those water quality, those big projects that I worked with your husband on, underneath SEP, under the IDS, there's 68 projects, and we're probably going to need about $18 billion for the whole project to be done from beginning to end. So those are the things I think I do, and I lead by example. Having been that advocate, having been to Tallahassee, knowing all the appropriate players, having been to Washington endless times. I mean, between Tallahassee, when I first went there back in 2013 to today, and Washington, I've probably been there 50 times.
Awesome. So COVID, I mean, nobody could have predicted this. It's unbelievable, and what it's doing to the economy and, people's health, and you just hate to see it. I have to ask, just because of the current times that, this election is happening in, how do you think the county handled the response to COVID-19? Would you have done anything differently? Would you have done a mask mandate? What are your thoughts on all of that?
I think the county's done a great job. Okay, I really do. Why? So they advocated for CARES money. They got $134 million, and they distributed that in the best way possible. So the EDO, the Economic Development Office, is really trying to concentrate on making sure we not only help the businesses, but the individuals that were obviously impacted. You have to remember one thing, okay? Government closed businesses down. Most people wanted to go to work. My business was certainly shut down in its entirety. My employees wanted to work, so I understand that. As far as when you get into personal responsibility, I'm a big believer that you as an individual should wear a mask, you as an individual. But I don't believe it's our responsibility at the local level to really mandate that. I just don't believe that. The state might, the federal might, but we don't. But that doesn't mean I'm not for wearing a mask. I always wear a mask, and I understand the importance of it. So I don't necessarily look at anything other than at the local level. It's really the last level that we should be doing things. It's great for local issues when you're trying to have home rule. You're trying to protect that. But when you have such different opinions out there on this situation, I think it's just best to do the campaign, to educate people and say, here are the reasons why you want to do a mask. Again, as someone that came into government when Sanibel was almost bankrupt, the citizens of Sanibel wanted less government, less regulations, less involvement. I've done that. So this seems like it's consistent with the theme I've actually walked upon. Being a conservative person, having less restrictions, and getting out of the way for businesses to do what they need to do so they could prosper.
Let me ask you, if you were elected to this seat, so the Lee County in particular has given money to big corporations. They gave money to Hertz. They're trying to create jobs in Lee County. Hertz is filing for bankruptcy now. VR Labs, obviously that didn't turn out well. They ended up in a lawsuit and were accused of scheming to defraud the county. So where do you stand, or I guess how would you vote on moving forward with these big corporations in Lee County giving money to try and kind of create jobs for the area?
Well, Amy, some of that's been on the Horizon Council for a long time. I think there's two paths that you go on. One is existing businesses, okay, and one are new businesses. Lee County initially had really no controls and no internal documents to say, how do we give big entities money, okay? That's why VR Labs was a bust. And they tried to get much better with having the Hertzes of the world and have jobs they need to create. But the EDO really needs to help the current businesses here. And I'm not talking about giving them money, but someone that's been in the asset-based lending business, where I go to various franchises and I become what's known as a preferred vendor. Lee County has the ability to come up with preferred vendors in various categories and help these local businesses that are here that have made the investment. They bought into the school system, they come here, and now we can give them tools in the toolbox. What bank should you do business with? Have 4 or 5 banks in that category that are not only going to lend you money, but are going to be low on fees. They'll do the necessary things. I can't tell you the number of people that ask me that in my business. Websites, try to have 4 or 5 vendors. Again, when you're running a company, an HVAC company, you're running a manufacturing company, you might not necessarily have enough people on your staff to know what a website is or have the ability to develop that, or a graphic artist to get those nice little pretty things that you receive. The logos in the back that I've created. You go to someone that's a graphic artist. But if you can have preferred vendors, that's why so many franchises really exceed. They do that because what you do is you vet the various people, you come up with a preferred list, and there's 4 or 5, so you have competition, which I think is really helpful. But you allow people to do that. We need to grow jobs that are currently here. We need to have that electrician, that plumber, that HVAC that has 8 people, get to 10, get to 12, get to 15. That's how you do it organically. And honestly, hiring a few people at EDO, as opposed to giving $5 million out to Vera Labs, is much better utilization. And I'm not saying I'm not for bringing a big corporation here, but you sell the things that we have to offer. No taxes. As someone that came from New Jersey, I look at the taxes, my entities, all 5 of them, I employ over 300 people. The taxes I save, and I think clearly with my skill set, I can demonstrate those things as we recruit companies. Because I think people dismiss the fact that you want an incentive. Well, the biggest incentive is that we don't have a state income tax. And that we really need to sell. And we have great schools here, great colleges here, state schools. My son went to the University of Central Florida, got a great education, went to the Sanibel School. So he's always gone up through the public and local communities and obviously had that opportunity. So I do believe we have the opportunity. And someone that's been in the private sector for 30 years, I've created tens of thousands of jobs. It's what I do. In asset-based lending, you do that. So I've used that skill set. I've learned from a big corporation. My first 10 years, 13 years actually was working underneath a subsidiary of Xerox. So kind of have learned the things that you need to do. And that's why I believe I'm a successful businessman today.
So what sets you apart, for people who have never met you, they're going to be voting. What makes you different from the other candidate in the race?
Well, first and foremost, I have a track record, okay? People talk about making promises. Promises made by Kevin Ruane, promises kept. I said I would reduce taxes. I reduced them by 26%, okay? I said I'd reduce debt. I reduced it by 81%. I said I would fix a pension system, okay? 47% to 93%. I said I would work on water quality and bring the projects here and continue to make sure in the last couple of years between Governor DeSantis and Washington giving us the type of funding that's necessary. So my track record is there. Mine's just not words. Mine are actions that you can quantify. You can look up Kevin Ruane. You know me from being here locally about water quality. You know the things I've actually been able to accomplish. And I want people to have the opportunity, Google my name, look at the various track records. But really what I say, promises made, promises kept. I've been a volunteer for 14 years, and that's what I've done. I don't get paid, so it's not about a paycheck. I've never been, and it won't be that way for Lee County. It's to help the community so my children and their grandchildren can grow up here and have the opportunities I was given, but more importantly, also watch Lee County be as great as it can be.
Awesome. Cool. Anything else you want to add?
Now, listen, I appreciate this more than you know, and it's an interesting time during COVID to try to have these opportunities because people obviously are very concerned. So anytime you connect with people, I want to connect with people. I always tell people, go to my website. It's votekevinruane.com. Feel free to reach out to me. I've been accessible. I've been that person that actually picks the phone up and answers you. Get pretty back. I probably work 90, 100 hours a day in a week, I should say, not a day. But I do that really because I love this community. I love the opportunity. And again, I'll always remember Hurricane Charlie is the reason I became a public servant. Had Hurricane Charlie not happened, I wouldn't be involved in office.
Yeah. Everyone remember, it's like one of those things. You remember where you were during Hurricane Charlie. I know I do.
You do. You know, it impacted my life. It really made me get involved in politics. And I just look at people and say, you know what? You should have the responsibility of vetting whoever you believe is best. But again, when you look through the last years, you can see the involvement. You can see my website. You can look at various articles. All you need to do is say Kevin Ruane Sanibel and Google. Read 100 articles about it. It's very easy to see who I am. My word is my word. I'm old school. My dad gave me that. When you promise someone to do something, you do it. And I promised things to the cities of Sanibel and the residents there in 2007. I've kept every promise I made during the campaign trail. I intend to do that at Lee County as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for hanging out with me this morning.
My
Cheers
pleasure.
to our
Cheers.
caffeinated beverages, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you soon.
Good luck with the twins. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.